Oh, okay, I got you.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
I'll withdraw my motion. Well, I know.
Yeah, let's find out what's going on.
I wasn't aware of
Yeah.
What is the addition?
A5 potential expansion or location of business. It's
Another economic development?
yeah.
Correct.
We'll go A1, A3, and A5.
under closed session, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Closed session.
A3 and A5.
Yeah, A1, A3, A5. All right. Now maybe we'll start.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended to include the additional closed session.
I'll second.
Okay, so the approval of the agenda with the addition of A5 to closed session. Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Cookenbook?
Yes.
Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Mr. Terman?
Yes.
So approved.
Okay, we'll move on to the approval of monthly disbursements and, you take them separate.
I don't know if we have to, but let's take them separate just in case.
Okay, we'll start with the regular ones and then we'll do the new ones that we got this morning separate.
I'll make a motion that we approve the bills that were presented in our packet. Second.
Motion and second, any other discussion? Call the roll.
Okay, the motion to approve the first disbursements within the packet. Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Cookenbook?
Yes.
And Mr. Terman?
Yes. And also, we have some new ones on the desk this morning. I'll take a motion to approve them. And then open for discussion. Is that okay?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion second, any other discussion?
Okay, motion to approve the second disbursements. Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Ms. Cookenbook?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
I'm gonna abstain because there's a transaction there that includes me.
Okay.
And Mr. Terman?
Yes.
Okay, with Mr. Booth abstaining, both first and second disbursements have been approved.
Before we get to Mr. Segan, I want to make I have a telephone call, a couple of them actually, and this pertains to me as much as it does anybody else. They said it was hard for them to hear us out on YouTube and social media because there's too much paper shuffling, which I'm guilty of. I've done it twice already since I sat down. Also, the mics being moved around. They say it's interfering with what they're hearing. These masks is bad enough without that. So, with that, I will move on to our senator this morning. Good to have you this morning.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be here. I appreciated the morning invitation, which is easier for my schedule, and also means I get to be in Floyd in the morning, which is probably the most beautiful time of day. So it's going to be a very interesting session. I'm looking forward to hearing your comments. Mostly, that's the most valuable opportunity here today. But just to lay out sort of what I'll be walking into in Richmond is everyone knows about Governor-elect Youngkin, Lieutenant Governor-elect Winsome Sears, and the new Attorney General Jason Miyares, and the new House of Delegates that will have a 52-48 majority, that Floyd's new delegate, Marie March, will be part of, the majority caucus. Todd Gilbert is presumed to be Speaker. They actually have to vote on that the first day, but he's been making appointments. Some of those appointments have been very good for the western part of Virginia. Yesterday, the transportation chair was named Terry Austin from Botetourt County. The Commerce and Labor Committee, which has very broad jurisdiction, is Kathy Byron from Bedford. Terry Kilgore from Scott County will not have a committee chairmanship because he's the majority leader. So our part of the state, and I expect it will continue, but so far we're in a pretty good place where there's folks that live closer to us in greater positions of leadership in the House of Delegates. The Virginia Senate will be different than it was last session. The two biggest differences is Winsome Sears will now cast tie-breaking votes. She will likely cast them the way most Republicans vote. And also, it will be 21-19. Last year, it was 21-18 because Senator Chafin passed away New Year's Day, and Governor Northam did not order an election until long after the session was over. That was different than what he had done for House of Delegates seats in Northern Virginia. They were expected to return members of his party. I actually have legislation this year to prevent that from happening in the future. If we're successful in getting it passed, special elections will have to be called sooner, regardless of where they happen, so there can be less gamesmanship. The consequence of not having Ben Chafin or his successor, Travis Hackworth, there last year was Southwest Virginia was down state senator. Different people define Southwest Virginia different ways, but in the broadest definition, most people would include it to mean Senator Pillion's district, the now Senator Hackworth district, the district I serve that we all live in, maybe Senator Edwards' district and Senator Stanley's district. So that would be 5 on that broad definition. We were down to 4. There were several major bills of consequence that ended up tying. Often it would because a member of the majority Democrat caucus would miss the vote, and we would not be able to prevail where we would have otherwise. And so that led to interesting things on the marijuana policy that we'll basically have to start at square one again, which isn't to say that it's not going to be made illegal, on day one. It's just the policy that was envisioned last year was done so in a very partisan way, even though there were Republicans like myself who had voted for decriminalization the year before. So we extended a hand. We were told, your votes aren't necessary. We got a good plan on how to do it. And it was pointed out that maybe the next election might not go their way. And turned out it didn't go their way. And now we have a policy that's envisioned that's not representative of the government policy that was just elected. So that's going to be the sort of thing that will be a major discussion, and it will be changed drastically because you now have Senator Hackworth and you have Lieutenant Governor. Several folks in Floyd have talked to me about trying to change some of the policies that passed the last 2 years. I mean, it doesn't shock any of you who are also represent citizens of Floyd that they did not like several of the bills that were passed into law, especially some of those that are related to gun rights. One that I heard from a lot of folks in Floyd was about these local ordinances. They understand that you all are highly unlikely to pass a local gun prohibition, but they worry about when they visit other jurisdictions nearby, the temporary nature of them. They don't want to get caught in Roanoke City. One Saturday they're there and they're fine, and then 3 Saturdays later there's a temporary prohibition. I completely agree. I'm against it. We will see what we can do on that. The challenge is in the Senate, despite those changes on the floor, where we're back at 19 and the Lieutenant Governor, that might make it appear that if one Democratic senator were to agree with Republican senators, that the policy would change. But there's a committee system, and Democrats, or honestly Republicans, aren't likely to buck their own committee system when their party's in majority. It would make things very challenging for a lot of things. And the Senate Education Health Committee that I serve on is a 9-6 Democratic majority. The Judiciary Committee, where the gun legislation and lots of other important legislation goes as well, is a 9-6 Democratic majority. The Commerce and Labor Committee in the Senate is a 12-3 Democratic majority. And Senate Finance, which is where a lot of bills, especially those that come out of Senate Education and Health, that are important, originate there and then have to go to Finance. That committee will be 11-5 Democratic majority. So you see, to sort of reverse something, you need to have substantial support, which doesn't mean to say that we will not work to try to find ways where we so significantly disagree with the policy, as do the citizens of Floyd overwhelmingly have communicated that to me. It's just making sure folks understand it's not as easy a terrain or map to navigate as I only need to pick up one Democratic friend to join me. I need several. And I've been successful in other things in the past doing that, and I'll continue working to do that, but it's more difficult than it might appear on paper. So that will be the Senate we'll be walking into. Governor Northam will be presenting a budget later this week. Legally, he's required to present a budget. I disagree with the format of having an outgoing governor do it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, that's the way it is. But one of the things I'm more concerned about with Governor Northam doing it is based on what happened several years ago when Governor Kane was leaving office and Governor McDonald was coming in. Governor Kane announced several new spending initiatives in the final 2 weeks before the budget was announced. And then when the budget was presented, and people had already been anticipating those great projects they were excited about, he then said, oh, and I plan to fund it through this tax increase that Governor-elect McDonald had just said he would not do during the campaign, and there was no way he was going to reverse what he told the voters just a few weeks earlier. So I hope that Governor Northam presents a budget that does include bipartisan tax relief in there that there has been large agreement on, especially raising the standard deduction. I think that we should double the standard deduction. Several of my Democratic colleagues have said that they also want to look at doing that. I hope we're able to do it, and I hope Governor Northam puts that into his budget. Also, we have good bipartisan support for providing grocery tax relief, and I'm hoping that that's put in the budget as well. I intend to carry the standard deduction bill. I actually introduced it earlier this week, and some of my other colleagues will be introducing the grocery tax relief. So we're only a few hours, I guess, away from finding out what Governor Northam will do, and a little pessimistic on what I think he'll do based on the past, but we will see. So I look forward to your questions and comments.
We're down here at Montgomery, we just, we're in, okay.
First of all, I appreciate you being here, and appreciate all the service you've done for the community of Floyd over the years. You've always been accessible. We've always, if we had an issue, you've been there, and I know the districts are probably going to change at some point here, and you may or may not be our senator, but I did want to take the opportunity to thank you for representing us well over the last number of years.
Thank you.
Couple things that I've probably I've mentioned to Delegate-elect March, and mentioned to you as well, that we've talked about for a number of years that I think would be things that would really help Floyd. The first one is just stormwater regulations. I'm sure that you've heard plenty about those, but it's Floyd isn't in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, and we get hit by a lot of things that are part of the cleanup of the Chesapeake Bay. In small communities like ours, and probably across Southwest Virginia and other areas that aren't in the Chesapeake watershed, it's a damper on new businesses coming because of the regulations and some of the things that we have to do. So anything that can be done to help us out and stormwater regulations, I think would go a long ways to helping us have affordable building, and then jobs that can pay a living wage here in the community. One thing that I think that we could really use in Floyd's has so much trouble with truck traffic, back up at the lights in town. It's just been congestion on certain days. And we've talked for years about trying to improve truck access to our Commerce Park through the existing industrial park. Something that the board may at some point ask for help on is so working with VDOT to try to get better truck access. It's probably a couple corners that we can straighten out and provide a good access point without those trucks coming through town when they come off the interstate. And the last thing that probably everybody will echo here is Route 8 improvements in Montgomery County, but between Reiner and the county line, we continue to have bad accidents there. I know it's a major project, and it's something that probably doesn't rate on the scale for VDOT compared to other places, but it's a real issue. It's an economic issue because of when people come off the interstate, drive down that maybe 3 miles of crooked road, and they get to a nice straight road in Floyd County, but they remember that little piece in Montgomery County, and they're not sure they want to build a business here. So I think that along with the safety factor of our residents driving to and from Montgomery County, I think it's that's got to at some point be fixed, and I don't know how to go about that, but maybe everybody gets their head together eventually and figures out a way to make that happen. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
To clarify that, the one we were concerned about is from county line to Camp Prairie Brook.
Yeah.
It's about 2.5 miles or something like that.
Especially that section.
Yeah.
But the whole thing.
Frank Ryder to the county line is all.
Yeah.
But that's the ones that gets congested if you just give us snow.
Yeah, it's a matter of what is, human life worth. And, we have lost far too many in that stretch of highway. And, it's just something that we've got to do. I would like to hear, after everybody else has said, how you felt about the redistricting and the fact that, just from your point of view, how the supposed bipartisan committee couldn't come up with a solution, and then it had to go to the court. And just to hear what you have to say about it, because as Lauren did say, if things pass the way they are, we will now be together with Franklin and right,
Patrick and Carol.
Patrick and Carol, right? That's the House of Delegates, right?
Yeah, on the House of Delegates.
On the Senate side, we'd be with Stanley.
Yeah, with Stanley.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd just like to hear your thoughts about that. Also, the unfunded mandate, state mandates that come to us unfunded. There are so many pressures right now. There will continue to be pressures on a small county like ours. And, the state's in some pretty good shape. It's been, all of you have worked together to manage it well, but you can't keep expecting smaller counties like ours to have to, come up with funds that, we just don't have them, and it stresses our abilities to take care of our citizens in the way we would like to. So those are the two big things. Lauren has mentioned the others, and I just want to thank you for your service and wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Sorry didn't say it, but thank you for coming. I'm gonna go in on the transportation part. That's usually what I stick to mostly, but I will say this on the unfunded mandates. Yes, pay attention to those, but maybe even more importantly, the areas that we have the ratios and percentages try and keep, I know it's your job to run the state and it's our job to run the county, but when you shift those responsibilities down to where your percentage is less, that means ours goes up. So if you would, Kelly, stand up for us on that would be great. On the transportation side, the current system's not working. We all know it, everybody in the rural, you probably hear this every rural county or area that you hear from. One of the big problems, and I thought we had fixed it through VACO, is Richmond and Salem has taken the authority away from the local residency like in David Clark, especially like on speed reductions and other things. And we need to reestablish that back to that department. Now, whether it's a JLARC study or whatever needs to be done, but we've got to get that power back to the resident. We thought we took care of it where the local government and the resident could do the speed reductions, but unfortunately, everybody forgot, there's 8 of us that do not have zoning. 8 counties without zoning. Well, the way the wording of that speed reduction is, it ties it specifically to residential districts and business districts, which is wording right straight out of your major zoning ordinances. And it doesn't look like it's going to be able to apply to us here in areas where we need speed reductions. And the reason for that is, every time the state does it, we put in a request for a speed reduction on the road, they do a speed study. The cost of that speed study comes out of our maintenance money, which results in less maintenance money to maintain our roads. And the engineer used to be where David Clark, people in his position, they could reduce the speed limit on the road to 25 mile an hour without going through all those hoops. But somewhere through the line, it changed. VDOT has become reactionary instead of proactive. And I've said this to everybody, and you're going to hear it too. One of these days, I'm going to hear the response that, well, there hadn't been enough accidents and there hadn't been a death. Well, that's what we're trying to prevent. One of these days, that man over there is going to be hauling me to the regional jail because I'm tired of hearing it. Yeah, I know. But and I've talked to other supervisors too. Maybe you can influence them down here in Richmond. They're much more educated than I am. They can come up with better terminology, even if it means the same thing. The citizens are tired of hearing that. We've got to get back to the proactive stance, and it's not like this board, I've sat on this board a long time. I haven't heard any supervisor bring up something to just, it's been serious problems that need addressing. And to hear that kind of response just, and the only way it's going to change is with you, the governor, and it's going to have to change at the top. And I'm about at the point where with the transportation, our roads are in the worst shape they've ever been. And our local crews, even Mr. Clark and company, they're doing the best they can with the funding they have. We got to get it back opened up for if somebody retires or somebody quits, you got to let them fill the positions.
Actually, add some positions. Good.
Well, we need to add some.
Back,
yeah. The word, I wish I was on this board when we went from three district offices to 2. And we growled, we should have stood on our head because everything's went downhill since then. They constantly reduced the numbers. Yes, we get more money, but the cost of everything's more, so in essence, we're not really getting, we don't have the same buying power with that money, and I'll get off my high horse and just remember when they're passing stuff, that's a big key too, that we're not a zoning community and there's 7 others like us. And it doesn't take much to change the wording to where it would include us in some of the legislation that's passed. And thank you for what you do, sir.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you for that, Mayor. Appreciate you. I trust you have our legislative recommendations. Most of what I have here is already echoed in here by way of the Second Amendment. Thank you for being cognitive of that, being willing to already come in with an open mind and look at ways to deal with those challenges. I appreciate that. Personally speaking, I'd also, as I told Delegate-elect in March, that let's get back to some quality education and not political sandboxes here, and really try to educate and have contributing members of society. This stuff has gotten way too ridiculous, and needs to be some accountability with local school boards and things as well. So keep those things in mind if you would. Also, the thing that's near to my heart is the mental health. The system is really broken, to say the least. You've heard a lot of comments here about burdens on localities. The current model has an extreme burden on local sheriff's offices who are tasked with the responsibility of transportation, where they are the primary law enforcement agency in the community. There's got to be a better solution than having somebody who is in crisis and in need of services to have faster help than to setting in an ER facility for up to 24 hours that is requiring, by code, a law enforcement officer to sit with them, therefore depriving the locality of its resources and having one person out here working in these communities, or two people covering a community of over 300 square miles by themselves. This is just very unfortunate that a group of people cannot come up with a better solution than that. And perhaps that solution may be with other models that other states are going to, by utilizing special divisions to handle that. A great place for that may be the Virginia State Police. There's a lot of talk about, and I want to be candid about this conversation with very, very much respect. This is not from my current capacity. I'm actually fortunate, I'm blessed where I am, but also starting a new season after the first 3 years. So publicly, I want to be clear about that. But with what I'm getting ready to say, I wholeheartedly support law enforcement, coming from a almost 15-year career in that field. But the circus that we witnessed last year does not need to happen again. There's a lot of folks that have felt a lot of stress in the law enforcement community with some of the bills that were changed, some of the powers that were taken away, and it's unfortunate. And there's a lot of stress in the law enforcement community for such things. And the accountability rests with those that are in Richmond. That's on everybody that was there that supported that. So I encourage you to take a look at some of the things that were passed last year. And those things, in fact, impact our local community as well. With some of the things that law enforcement can do or cannot do any longer, taking away things that can be proactive to protect the community, but increasing the burdens by way of mental health that doesn't serve anyone. So that whole area needs a close look as well. So that's my soapbox, and I appreciate your being here. I appreciate you listening. Just take a look at these things. There's several things in here that's close to a lot of us, and I appreciate you listening and what you have done. I hope you have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
I have to move my mask down because I can't talk and breathe at the same time. But I echo what Mr. Coleman just said. I guess I'm just an old cop and always will be. I reach out to Ms. Marsh about this, and I've talked to Sheriff Craig. I don't see how that stopping a vehicle with dead tags or expired inspection sticker or no tail lights is profiling. I can't get that. It's in the code section, you gotta have them. And when you can't stop a vehicle because they don't have brake lights as long as the deck lights working, I mean, that's ridiculous. And it tied law enforcement's hands. But Ms. Morris said if I could get a bill, and she would work with it. It's not one certain bill. They went through the whole code and changed primary offenses to secondary offenses and down the line. So I don't know how you can fix it without going through it again. But it's not only a safety issue. There was a lot of drugs, a lot of wanted people that were apprehended because they was too dumb to get state registration and inspection sticker, But, law enforcement's, bad enough with the environment we live in without tying their hands further. And I'm sure that some of these people would come up with those ideas if their family was hurt or injured because of an infraction like that, then they would be jumping up and down. But they can't blame law enforcement when they take their authority away from them. So, I'm like Justin, that's been my soapbox for a pretty good while. And I echo what the rest of the board has said, that we appreciate your representation. We mean you sort of got off on a rocky start. You did a great job, and I'm just one of the people that's straightforward. If I have an opinion, I want to express it. So sometimes I don't know how to articulate it in a mild manner. But I would like to say I appreciate you. You've done a good job for us, and we look forward to working for you some more. Sheriff Craig, you want to?
I forgot one thing.
Okay. Okay.
I gotta say, one thing real quick, and again, this will not benefit me in any way, because again, after the first year going in a new direction, but there's a lot of comments out there, a lot of things circulating depending upon what General Assembly does with perhaps what may happen with the pay raises to the law enforcement community, specifically the Virginia State Police. I respect them, have a lot of very good friends there. But I would just like to add one thing. Perhaps it's time to look at the requirements by code that local sheriffs are responsible for versus police departments and the state police, and see how that equals out. This is not equitable pay, and local agencies are struggling. This board has been very proactive to try to bridge that gap for our law enforcement community, and it's only going to get worse if the projections next year go forward with what is expected to happen with the state police and their brigade academy and their bump in pay. There has got to be some pay equity for us, for the localities, to keep quality local people serving their communities. We have done all that I feel like that we can reasonably do, and we need help, and that help needs to come through compensation board to the sheriff's offices, and not just to one group in the law enforcement community, respectfully. Thank you.
And touching on what he just said, I actually had a trooper tell me one time that sheriff's departments really was better trained than they was, because we enforce criminal, traffic, civil, courtroom security, we got the whole ball of wax, we're the primary criminal and motor vehicle. So I agree with Justin that there's got to be some pay coming in, to be able to keep good, qualified officers, especially in today's environment with law enforcement.
Yeah. The mental health aspect, if that gets the attention it needs, deserves, and is warranted, that will have an effect on so many different areas. That if we really look at it from our state government level and seriously try to tackle some of those problems, it improves child protective services, it reduces crime, it improves our schools, it helps with our foster care, and it should eventually lead to less criminal activity. I mean, we can't stop it completely, but the mental health aspect, and like Justin said, these teams of mental health professionals that work with our law enforcement, that's really important. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I really appreciate it.
Yes, I want to agree with Justin and Joe, and I think we all do on the police and sheriff's area. I just wanted to add too on that mental health, and this is, I do this to everybody, so don't feel bad. The state spends money on tourism, attracting tourism stuff, business, industry. It's time to take a look at these providers so that we have facilities here in the state of Virginia. We have situations, and I know everybody sitting here knows the stories where part of it is on the criminal justice side. It's not a large part, but it does have an impact. The court system has a child in the juvenile that needs services, but they have the violent part to a certain level that goes with it. They get shifted to the Child Services Act and to social services. We have trouble finding a location for someone to take this child in. And many times it ends up being at a facility out of state, whether or not you have the violent or not. So that we just don't have the facilities here. One step in that direction, ensure that our juvenile justice system has people trained to deal with these children so that the judges have another alternative. They can keep them within the juvenile system, and the child can still get the treatment they need. Now, and I'm sure there's ones that will argue against that or whatever. You know, we're starting to go more to the proactive with the First Family First program and that stuff. So let's get in our justice system to where we're treating. It used to, when someone went through the justice system, they would, if they needed help, they were treated, and we had more preventive stuff. We went through years there that we decided we wanted to build jails and be rehab, do it on the other end, and we went away from that preventive. It's the same thing with the mental health. We have to get them on the front end. And as Linda pointed out, it will impact every other agency. But please look at trying to reach out to these people and these companies and bring those facilities here. That way we don't have to send someone to Florida or Washington. And I'm not going into detail, but we have had people from here in Floyd in those type of facilities that far away. Because that was the only ones we could find to take them. I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox too.
There too is like Mr. Coleman was talking about a minute ago. Not only is officers tied up sitting with a mental patient in a hospital, but then when they find them a bed, it may be in Chesapeake or Northern Virginia somewhere. So now you've got two more officers tied up. And small locality like this got very few officers on the road to begin with. And that just leaves the county open. You get overtime because officers has to be called out. And it's like, I talked to Judge Long one time on this mental health thing. There is young people sitting in the regional jail that shouldn't be there. Because they're at that borderline where that they don't fit into the mental health thing, but they're borderline enough that they really can't make an intelligent decision. Yet it's spread into a penal institution with hardened criminals, and then they get taught to them. And we need some way or another to evaluate those people, to divert them away from the penal institutions and get them some mental health for education or something. I mean, it's a big ball of wax for you to wrestle with, but all the help you can give, we would appreciate it. So.
Everybody else has had one more.
No, it's all the way back around, full circle.
There you
I
go.
mean, I might as well go for the.
You gotta get as many in today as you can.
I'll be really quick. One thing I meant to mention in the first round, but I didn't do it, but one of my big concerns in the next few years for Floyd is, our population is slowly growing, but our school population is going the other direction. And we have aging schools, we've done a lot of improvements, but one of my big fears is we've got these old big buildings and if less and less children come to school and the state potentially putting in less and less money, we're gonna be really pinched to not only educate them, but also keep our facilities up. And I think that's gonna be a major challenge over the next 5 or 10 years. So I think this board has been really proactive about trying to think about things that we could do to kind of head that problem off a little bit, but it's gonna be something, and I suspect it's all the way across Southwest Virginia, it's the same issue. So the state, I hope, will look at some type of funding that will, if not hold harmless, population laws at least, have some assistance there to maintain an education level that maybe localities can't maintain because of that. Because they just don't have as many children going to school anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, thank you. I appreciate each of your comments and the comments that then ignited other thoughts in each other's minds, and I appreciate all that. I want to be mindful of your agenda, and I don't want to end up, I see we're already past our allotted time, but I do want to make sure that I at least address some of those things. But the very fact I don't address it right now does not mean I didn't hear it or take note of it. The police enforcement, those were very large bills. I think that was problematic in general. You're right about the legislative challenge in fixing it as a result. I don't think those bills were looked at that closely when they were coming through by the proponents of it. Sort of an awkward situation when you're a critic of a bill. It's at what point do you raise the awareness of it? And they passed, the proponents had passed that bill and sent it to the governor where you were going to be able to drive with no headlights at all. And it was at that point that we pointed out to them that they had done that, and the governor said, well, I'm going to amend it so that you can only have one headlight out. And, that's the sort of thing that pretty dangerous driving on Floyd roads or lots of other roads in Virginia with only one headlight. Not every place has street lights.
Yeah.
And so I recognize that, and several of my other colleagues did too.
Yeah.
But that was the sort of thing that happened. And I'm not a big fan of the inspection law, but it's even worse to me when you tell me that it's important you get it done every year, but we're only going to enforce it if you're 14 months out. And so, well, then it's really only important that I get it every 14 months is what you're telling the citizens. And, I don't like encouraging people to break the law. I think it leads to less respect for the law and makes it a lot harder for our officers that are charged with enforcing it. I think we should pass laws that we intend to be enforced. If it's 12 months, I don't think we should have an inspection at all. That's a different topic that I don't want to go on about today. But regarding the transportation for folks that are in crisis by law enforcement, that is something that is being discussed jurisdiction after jurisdiction. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to pull some things on that. One of the challenges is a lot of our mental health laws, and it's an emotional subject, and so it's often difficult in how we actually reform it in the way that we might want to, and maybe we might be able to agree to at a calm moment. That's one of the great challenges in Richmond, is the times they've been written. Often it's because a crisis has occurred, and then it's written, and there's the best of intentions, but not always the wisest policy. So we have that. Police compensation, it is always a challenge when you have the different law enforcement entities. And if you don't do them all at once, you basically set one of your agencies with more money to the auction, and the next week you send the next one, and then you're really just often trading the same folks, especially your top quality people that are wanted by everyone. And unfortunately, the General Assembly that's been the path the last decade. It's either been no increase in compensation or an increase here, and then later another one over here. And I can tell you, when one agency gets a compensation increase, you hear it immediately from the others, and vice versa. And I've expressed that previously, and unfortunately, the General Assembly has continued down that path of doing those at different times.
Would it bother you to interject on that for just one little thing?
Certainly not.
To give you kind of an idea, we had this discussion in our dispatch here just this past week. My number 2 man, my chief deputy, makes less than one of our just strictly patrol troopers. He's not a master trooper or anything. So my second highest paid person in my department makes less than just our average patrol trooper. That's the money issue that we look at. You know, when you have troopers making as much as me that just ride the roads and run radar, compared to a sheriff, they don't deal with the stress. Those are the things that upset locality departments, sheriff's departments, when they look at they're making $34,000 or $36,000, and the same trooper with the same amount of experience is in the 70s. That's where it bumps up and gets crazy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Sheriff. And I appreciate all that you do for this county.
And I will say, I don't know who knows Mr. Sewell. He has always been, at least in my opinion, very pro law enforcement. Takes my phone calls and has been very supportive when he can be, that's for sure.
Well,
So
thank
I do
you.
appreciate that.
I do appreciate those comments, and we'll work to continue to make that accurate. The one good thing, just to make you aware of on the subject, is there has been a new association created in the last 2 years for the law enforcement sheriffs, which has helped us in our discussions in Richmond. One of the challenges is and I appreciate all our sheriffs. I represent sheriffs that are courthouse and jail service is their primary responsibility, and law enforcement is done by police department. I appreciate what they do, that's important too. But one of the challenges in the General Assembly, you have so many legislators that only that is their experience. If you're a Fairfax County Senator, or a Prince William County Senator, or a Virginia Beach Senator or delegate, these are the situations. And so it's a little harder for them to appreciate what's going on. So I think that organization has been helpful. Regarding stormwater regulation, I represent one very small community that is in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. It's in Roanoke County. And all the other wonderful communities I represent aren't in there. And so it's been very frustrating to me. My predecessor, Senator Smith, he had a great bill to make it so that the Chesapeake policies would affect the Chesapeake localities. And we thought it made a lot of sense.
Seriously.
Unfortunately, General Assembly did not think so. And so we continue to articulate points like that and try to mitigate those challenges. One of the challenges is there are some large jurisdictions who are not in the Chesapeake Bay watershed who increasingly argue for stormwater policies that would run counter to what, honestly, I think a lot of their constituents would want, but definitely what your constituents would want as well. That creates a big challenge for us with that. Appreciate Supervisor Coleman bringing up the Second Amendment. I think I addressed that earlier. On CSA, it will continue to be a huge challenge. I carried legislation that was based on the recommendation of JLARC, and not really a better recommendation you can get than that in the General Assembly. And it was one of those things where you could get the half loaf still, and that was it. I'll continue to advocating for CSA reform. I hear it both from the parents that want it for their children and from the localities with the responsibilities to them. Unfortunately, there are some folks, there are interests that have financial benefit to these current policies, and they do important work. But the reality is, financial motivations often stifle the best policies we would hope for. Even if those folks that have the financial motivation are doing good work, it still gets us a little far afield from where we'd like to be for these families, where they especially would like to be themselves. Regarding the school attendance, long term, I do not believe it will be possible to hold harmless. I think that it makes a lot of sense in general that we should not hold localities harmless, which I know is not what you want to hear. But the reality is that this funding is there to provide these children education. I understand it's an incredible facility challenge. What I think this year, I don't know if it will be in the form of hold harmless or not, but I expect there to be a significant infusion, regardless of what it's called. I would prefer it not be called hold harmless, because I do not want to give a false representation to counties that this is something that's intended to continue, because I do not think it can. But given our current financial situation in Richmond and the governor-elect's incoming campaign pledges, I believe, which also align with what I like, which is nice, I believe that we will be able to make significant investments in K-12. But with that money, it should be viewed sort of like Joseph with the 7 good years. You need to be very careful with that, because it might not be 7 good years. So I'd take a strong look at that. On unfunded mandates, I bring up Floyd County a lot in discussions, in part because it's the county with the most modest population that I represent, and I have some colleagues that have great ideas, and one of them is there ought to be a nurse in every school. There needs to be an RN. Well, that's fantastic, but it's highly expensive, and what an elementary school size in Virginia Beach or Henrico or even Spotsylvania is different than what it is in Floyd. And I try to make that very clear to my colleagues that what the cost would be to Floyd, and if they do that, what consequences there might be to larger public education. And I think the greater consequences would be worse, even though it would be great. If we find a way to get an RN in every one of the elementary schools, I just do not believe that it's financially prudent given our size. So those are the sort of mandates that I always try to push back on. I appreciate that you talked to Delegate-elect March about it as well. Something where you can help me, but you can definitely help her, and this is the case for every new member, is she's going to have several colleagues from these much larger jurisdictions come to her with these wonderful ideas. And she's a fiscal conservative, so I think it'll be a little easier for her to say no than it is for some of the other new folks. But it will still be a significant pressure to say, won't you do this? And it's important that you all highlight this is what the real cost of Floyd County is.
Yeah.
And if you're able to send letters when you see these things come out and tell them when you hear delegate, at that point it'll be Delegate March tells you this, please know we're the people that have to fund this budget. The only other, and like I said, I took notes on all these things, but I recognize you have a busy agenda. So the one issue that remains that I do plan to comment on is redistricting. It's not final. We don't know what will happen, but the only map that has come out in the last 10 years that has Roanoke County, where I live, and Floyd County together in a Senate district is actually the current one that we're operating under. There hasn't been any proposal that has put us together or put my friends in Carroll or with me. It's unclear if, I think from a purely compactness standpoint, it makes the most sense for the Roanoke Valley to be joined as much as possible. I don't think that Vinton should be split, which is what they're currently envisioning. I think that if I had my way and I got to draw the lines, I would love to represent Floyd. I think Floyd should be with Montgomery County. That would be where I would start a district, and then I would go from there. I'm disappointed that Floyd is not drawn in with Montgomery County. The issues that you addressed today on transportation specifically were with Montgomery County. I can tell you the correspondence I received from constituents, your cohort of your constituents, the other cohort that most similarly registers the same opinions with me regularly, are folks that live in Reiner and Auburn. And they see things very similar to Floyd. And the other folks are folks in northern Carroll County, which should not shock you. So I think it would make sense for those counties to be together, which a long time ago were. I don't know if they'll see it. Senator Stanley, who would likely be at least the presumed front runner to be your senator. I enjoyed working with him. I actually represent most of the citizens in his home county right now, Franklin.
Right.
Most of them are in the district I serve, and he and I also serve Carroll together. Regardless of what happens, unless something unforeseen happens, I intend to finish this term, and I intend to serve Floyd throughout the whole time. And if I ever do have the opportunity to be in state government again, it's not going to be as if I forgot about my experiences in Floyd and all the wonderful people who supported me, and that will be something that will continue on with me as well. Just as in the same way, Carroll County and Wythe County and some of these other counties, I likely will not get the pleasure of continuing to serve. But I really enjoyed representing Floyd. I hope nothing unforeseen happens. I want to continue this term, and I hope that I continue getting to work for Floyd either way, and appreciate your all service. You all have been always very clear. The chairman always talks about how we got off to a bad foot. I don't think he realizes he's such a gentle soul. I never even knew. I represent a lot of folks that I always know. I don't think a difference of opinions getting off to the wrong foot or anything. I appreciate it. Appreciate your service and that you're going off. And congratulations on your re-election.
Thank you.
Enjoyed working with you as well, Linda. It's been a fun time. And Supervisor Yoder, probably the first friend I ever had in Floyd County, in part because of his larger involvement in the Republican Party outside of Floyd. And also, geographically, it's pretty close to Roanoke County. There's some folks on the corner of Roanoke County that think they ought to be in Floyd. Both are great communities, and I love representing both. I don't think we ought to be shifting the county lines. But I appreciate your service as well, and wish you and your growing family all the best.
Thank you.
I'm going to head out now so you all can get on to your business. But please do not hesitate to reach out to me during this General Assembly session. And you're always welcome to come And that's also very helpful, especially when we're talking about agriculture issues.
Yeah.
I tell folks that there are senators that don't represent a single farmer. And so it's important that the farmers I represent come there so I can help articulate that. And I appreciate all that you've done for agriculture as well during this time. I hope you have a great Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Hello.
good morning.
Had lunch with our senator not too long ago, and some of those issues have been long-standing, and believe me, a lot of letters go out. And the biggest ones are the support cap, which he's well aware of, that was put in during the Great Recession in 2008 and has never been removed. A large amount of money that is stagnated, just like the non-division of law enforcement. That the revenues that the state and the vast organization, the Virginia Association of School Superintendents, the lobbying group, it's an over, since 2008, 95% increase in state funds and less than 1% towards the support cap for public education. So it's one of those that I know the Senator talked about nurses. It is an unfunded position, and anytime we got a raise in my 5 years, we've never had to come here. And as you all know in the past, they don't fund every position, and you've had to help that. We've been fortunate to put that into our budget and do it, but there is no question that some of our resources we need, people we need, are unfunded positions. I mean, we're up to 2 school psychologists, which is amazing because you can't hire those. DSS can't hire them. So we're in good shape there, and we'll continue to look at reallocate those, but the unfunded mandates are terrible. They're a killer, and it is one of those that is on every agenda to every senator, every delegate, from state superintendents. So believe me, we're getting the word out, and we have some really good people in Richmond that are lobbying for those causes too. But on that note, and money, no, we don't talk about money here, but one reason I am a little dirty, because we saved money. We had our first big truckload of furniture and supplies from the CCDC because you got to order them.
Yeah.
If you don't order them, the prices go up. And we got threatened with the price increase. We said, bring them. So we were unloading those in our Connex containers. That was a good thing, and we'll get you over there in January. But it's like I said, it's going good. We'll be on budget. You know, maybe $1 short. You know, below. So, but we'll be spending every dime of it. There's no question. But we'll stay on it, and we'll keep you up to date. But nothing major there. No issues. And then the HVAC with our CARES money, with our ESSER money, and then the new money is a 1-to-1 match. So we're working on that, but it's being absorbed. That's close to $5 million that was removed from the HVAC. It's 4.5, a little over that. We're able to put all that back, so that progress is going good. You know, it's going to take some time because the whole makeup areas, the whole systems, most of the bipolar ionization is in. So we're going to continue with that to keep the clean air. So that's going good. You know, we're on track, and we'll see about the next CARES Act with the buildings. We have 2 roofs that we're keeping an eye on and have been, so hopefully we can pull some of that. But there is a large infrastructure. The Small Rural Schools Coalition, another lobbying group for us that Floyd is a part of. Our board passed that, I think, 3 years ago, the resolution. They are a large lobbying group. I'll be happy if you all have anything, I can take it to them. And the biggest key that we're doing there is infrastructure. The other one, which we don't need because of citizens, is the connectivity. We're in a good place here. But the infrastructure of schools in this state are really short-sighted. We're probably in better shape than most, but when the delegates come, when state superintendents come, I show them the plaques from the 1930s and 39. And we hit those and we show them, and so we're making that very, very aware. So anytime with that lobbying group with small and rural schools, we hit that up hard. Other than that, we're making it through the pandemic. There's no question we've been fortunate. For this semester, unfortunate we haven't had snow. It's always good to have a snow day, but fortunate that we have been in person the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's still there. We work directly with the health department. I'd say bi-weekly. I do a weekly call with them, but trying to keep everybody healthy. We'll get through to Thursday and have a good break, and then we'll see what the new year brings. But all that's going good, and as you all are doing and will do, I'll probably work on the outgoing governor's budget and then see what changes are and see what influx, and like we always done, we'll be extremely efficient with it, and hopefully be able to, a bad word that the Richmond doesn't like is, they always say, locals, it's your job to fund it, but I always tell them, yeah, it's your job to fund it, but you got to fund all the things you're asking us to do, and you're not doing it. And you're keeping caps on things that you should be giving us. So. But other than that, I think we're in good shape with all those, and I think there's a couple supplemental requests that we have there. The one with the bus, we don't go out and look for these buses. We're a year and a half away from the cycle. The two things we did was cycle a large amount of money within our budget and financed it at 0%. So when that cycle comes up, we'll see what that amount is and try to buy new buses. This was a 6-year cycle because it's the only thing we could afford, and this is the best way to do it instead of coming to another source. So the $5,500 bus is one that Senator Merriman has said, we got a great one for you. There is some warranty on it. So I think it's the second one we bought until we stretched to the 6 years over.
Yep.
We just need to buy new ones. We may not be able to get 11 because the prices may have gone up, but whatever we can get with the same amount of monthly payment that's already in our budget, we'll do. So that one, and then the other one, as we continue to go through and do it pretty fiscally responsible, change these security systems as they go out, the old ones. Indian Valley is ready to get onto the citizens system. So that's the other thing we have there. Once they break, we're not going to repair them for twice as much money as we can put a better one in. So those are those supplemental requests.
Any questions or comments?
Just Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Well, and
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Coleman and Mr. Yoder, and it truly has been a pleasure. And there's no question you've been involved. You've looked at, you've done it the right way, first and foremost. As gentlemen, as good human beings, and sincerity. And, you do that, and that's when things get done. And fortunately, you had the knowledge and the ability to listen to make sure progress happened for everybody. We're all in this together, so y'all are always welcome anywhere, you know that, and I'll put a tab in the schools for you all to get a free meal every now and then.
Thank you off the board.
Thank you very much. You have done a spectacular job. I see a lot of localities, and I hear people complain, superintendents. I don't have any complaints. Great job.
Thank you very much for being easy to work with, and appreciate all you've done for our school division during these trying times. I hope you and your family have a Merry Christmas.
Oh, same to you all.
I'd like to echo Mr. Coleman's comments. I really appreciate the ability to work with the school board and with you as superintendent. That does mean a lot in the community. There's so many times that things can go off the rails and then the whole community suffers. So really deeply appreciate that. I know the whole community appreciates that. And in a few years, hopefully I'm back in a different capacity. I'm in schools bringing the kids. So that's the whole there. That's one of the reasons I'm leaving, but I look forward to those days. So.
You'll get to see how patient he actually is.
Just glad you're contributing to the ADM now. I've done my part.
Yes, yes,
He's definitely in for a learning experience.
That's funny. I've tried for 10 years to get Richmond to give us money, and it seems like the only way they'll give it to us is if we get it. Try that angle.
I do want to say thank you for inviting us over this morning. I'm sorry we can't make it, but
Yeah.
my world, I know the rest of them's been a whirlwind the last week and trying to get everything together. And I don't know if you was aware that Dr. Millsap's mother passed this morning. So, we got a motivate for that, but we've got an excellent replacement while she's gone. And, but I say, thank you for the invite. We will take you up on it.
All right, we'll get together. All right, Merry Christmas.
Excellent, yes.
Mr. Clark?
We're exactly on schedule.
Yeah, look at
Doing great.
that. Yeah, right. But we didn't have Don.
I won't cause you to get any further behind.
We'll see.
It's all up to you. For the update this month, it's just a couple of kind of routine maintenance things. This time of year we're dealing with sometimes smaller crews because this is our end of the year with holidays and vacations and stuff like that. So still trying to get a lot done. On the maintenance part is just some gravel roads and kind of normal stuff like that. Pike cleaning on Franklin Pike and Christiansburg Pike, Thomas Farm. We're having a couple of nice days, so we were able to do some patching. Did some patching on Daniels Run. There was a request to get some of those on Park Drive, the one that goes up towards the ball fields near town. We got that. As well as some on Firehouse as well, and some shoulder work on Franklin Pike. Just a little bit kind of here and there. Ditching on Daniels Run. So that's been our kind of our focus is catching up, kind of a little bit all over the place on some things. Construction part. As I've said before, we're done with the construction project for this year, which is Roger. And we're looking at next year and working on kind of a two-pronged construction thing. We've got to where the ones that we have that are contract, that we're going to have to put out the contract to fairly large projects, and that would be Firehouse. And we're working on the right-of-way and working on that. But I think we can, and it probably won't go to add this coming year. We'd still like to get one of the gravel roads done this year, and that will be one that we can do with our guys, our state force crews, and that will be depending on how we get the right of way. Ponderosa will be next. We're still, still trying to figure out what we're going to do, and I think we can work on that. It's not too late to do that, but the next one in line would be Silverleaf. So we'll get one of those two next year. Those are two fairly easy routes once we get everything ironed out. So we'll be working on that in the next couple months, and then we'll have the, of course, we'll have the 6-year plan public hearing, probably in, I think we've done it in March or April before, maybe April. So we'll look at that, and a couple things will move off the plan, and probably be able to add one or two. We have ordered the signs for that would limit parking in front of milestones. And we are working on ramps. We have put new ADA ramps in on 221 for the push button, the flashing part there by the Visla. And so we're going to do that at the same time that we fix the sidewalk and drop in on the box.
I'm sorry.
We're going to do that at the same time. We've got to get a concrete crew in to do the ADA ramps, and we're going to do that probably next month at the same time we do the one on Fox.
Oh, okay, so next month we will see the ramps go in.
Ramps at least, yeah.
All right. I'm sorry, but any idea on the push button themselves?
No,
They still haven't got that scheduled.
Not yet. Okay. We're going to get those ramps in because that's in the ground, and then the signposts and all that will have to fit around that. So we want to get that in before we make any decision on, tie us down on how to put the signs up.
Okay.
That's all I have, updates.
Mr. Yoder, you wish to?
Have a long list today. I really don't have anything other than, my mind's not completely blank now. Oh, Franklin Pike, just to reiterate, I don't think it's been done yet, but, when they put the new lines on the road where the paving was done, if they could get white lines on the edge as well. I had, some people out there that were really concerned that maybe there'd be white lines all the way to town.
I'll check that out, yeah, I have on my list actually, some of the things that they, were planning on getting. Well, no, that was, I don't know what that is. They said there were some lines painted.
Okay, I haven't been out there recently, I just had a couple people talk to me about.
I'll review it, they have the intersection of 640 and 681 on my list here, lines painted, but I'll see if it's.
It's just out there next to the parkway especially, it's really hard to see, and the last time their lines were painted, they only did center lines. And so they were, sometimes when people were coming towards you in the fog, you can't really see the center line very well.
Yeah.
And the white line really helps, so, it says a few people that were really hoping that would be done, and I haven't, like I said, I haven't been out there in about a week, so.
Okay.
They may have been done, but I thought because there was some paving done there, it would be a good time to get all of it done if a crew was out there, so. Thank you for that, and that's really all I've got.
Just cooking
All
book?
right, really, not too much. Starbucks gravel part is a mess, so if someone can get out there with a grader, and, I mean, you could probably lose a small subcompact car in a couple of the ditches that are now in sort of the right of way of the road, not just the ditch. And then, not to complain about our fiber being laid by various construction companies, however, on 615 in particular, Christiansburg Pike, north of Moore Road, there are some rather large rocks that have been unearthed. And I can see these as being a safety hazard, especially in those curves that occur before you get to the Little River Bridge, heading northbound. And I could just see a major accident happening where a car is pushed off or has to veer into the shoulder. They've created some real gullies now. And so I don't know what you can do, but I thought they were going to take care of them, but they just kind of left them. I mean, there's some big, large boulders. So if you could check on that. And other than that, not too much else. It's sort of quiet. This must be your Christmas.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Mr. Cole?
I just want to say thank you again, Mr. Clark, for the continued work on these naming projects. We were able to present that to the Cox family last Wednesday. Mr. Clark was with us there for that presentation, so I appreciate that. Thankful to hear that our other projects successfully passed last week as well, to the Commonwealth Transportation Safety Board there. So just thank you for that. I don't have any needs at the moment, so appreciate you being here. Hope you have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Did you say you were still working on the signs at Mount Snow?
Yes, we have this order, yeah, just
Okay.
no parking from time.
So-
We won't allow loading and unloading.
Well, I was wondering, because there's some signage been put up there.
Yeah,
I saw that and I said, I don't think that's what David was talking about, surely, so.
We'll have two signs on post.
Okay, all right,
They're green and white.
yeah. Thank you for replacing and fixing the 35-mile-an-hour sign on 221 that got knocked down. Still need to put the one on Woods Gap up from where Baker intersects there.
I checked, I'm not sure exactly where that sign is supposed to be.
The wooden post is there.
Post is there.
The post is still there, because they took a reciprocating saw and just cut the top of it off and took sign and all.
It's near Baker on Woods Gap?
Yeah, when Baker, you come in on Baker, like you're facing going up to the high school.
Yeah.
You turn right and go up just a little bit, your treated pole's still sitting there, what's left of it. it would just help remind people through there, but, and just want to thank all the crews for all the work they're doing. I know they've been doing some brush clearing and, like you said, ditching and trying to get around, work on gravel roads. I know it's hard, no more rain than we've had recently. It's hard to machine a road that, you know, that if you do, it's just gonna blow away, but, and just thank you and everyone for what you do, and hope you have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and we'll gear back up, I'm sure, the first of the year. We'll have all kind of stuff to talk about.
You know, it's interesting that you know what kind of saw we're used to.
I use them all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I noted that.
Yeah. I'll let the record show, I'll turn the meeting back over to the chairman. I'll turn the meeting back over to you.
I saw Brian taking notes too. So.
Yeah.
But again, was you finished?
Yes, I was done. As I told him, we'll start over at first of the year.
All right, so which way we're going?
Your last.
You're the last one, you got back
That's
to
the
us.
last
you're the
one.
last
Okay, well, times are important, I guess, but anyway, just appreciate the good work y'all are doing, you know, you're just general maintenance you all know about. It's about the only thing I had this one to bring up. And, so I'd say have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
All right. Thank you very much. I do have a copy. This is just the resolution for the naming of Route 8. It's just the package that was before the Commonwealth Transportation Board.
I just have one thing, Jerry, you were mentioning the thing about coming down Baker Street. Now, there is coming out of the road, coming out of the new building. It appears that they're putting a whole new lane in.
I don't know, I'm waiting, reserving my comment.
All right, I think before you leave town, you might want to go over there, just to look at it, please.
Sure.
I just saw it yesterday and it was like, and so, yeah.
Yeah, I'll swing through. I'll talk with Jesse Miller, who's coordinating.
Okay, just check that out.
Okay. Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Jerry's coming.
Yeah.
Jerry's just
Yeah, no,
It'll get released at some point.
I mean,
I didn't bring it up because I wasn't exactly sure what they were doing yet. And,
well, yeah,
and according to the man that was here earlier, everything's going just fine, so.
yeah, well, kind of,
So let it roll on.
well, it made
Rolling right along, I
me, it
think.
made me look twice, 3 times.
4 or 5 times.
Okay.
You know.
If it's okay, I noticed we got about 16 minutes. We'll try to squeeze the sheriff in on his request this morning, because I know he's a busy man.
I'm not here on request, I'm just here basically to say thanks to a few people. You know, with Lauren leaving there, I'll start with you. I'll fuss with Justin later, but I'll start with you. You know, since you've been on the board, at least since I've been sheriff, you've been nothing but supportive of law enforcement. We've been very fortunate, at least since I've been sheriff. Even with Casey Klinger, but as far back as I go as sheriff, you know, this board has always been, in my opinion, very supportive of the safety of this community. And, you know, I want to thank you, Lauren. You, for one, have always been very supportive, just like everybody else. Truly appreciate your time on the board, your friendship. Gonna miss you. I'm excited for you on your new endeavors. Sleep now I can. On many aspects of what you've got going on. But you know, you've rode with us. You've kind of seen what we've done, but thank you so much for being a part of our team, and truly appreciate it. And there's no doubt our department's been blessed having you on board. So thank you.
You've been, every sheriff that's been here, Shannon and you have been really good to work with, but you in particular have, it's just been a real pleasure. And to have someone that's willing to work with this board is so important to advance a common goal. So can't thank you enough. I know our community really appreciates everything that the Sheriff's Office does. I'll continue to support you, whatever I can do.
Sounds good.
Community side.
We look forward to seeing you out and about. Justin, I will tell you this, as head of this department, y'all, I will let y'all know, Justin has done an outstanding job, sometimes to the point that it's upsetting to me, but how in the world he can remove himself from the aspect of a supervisor, and then when he comes to work at my department, he's a deputy sheriff. Never in the world, never did I think that he would be able to separate the two like he has. And even when, with 20 years of interrogation, even when I would try to backdoor and try to figure out something, he'd be like, "Oh, Sheriff, that's a different hat." But he'd tell me it's a different hat. And I knew right then I better stop, because he knew where I was trying to run. But I can tell you, he did an outstanding job at separating the two, and I want to thank you for that. And it seems like from what I've seen with you up here, you were able to always separate your hats when you became a board member. Not trying to crack on anybody here, but to be as young as you were, to step up, to try to do the board, and to do the job that I had you do, it's just incredible to me. From what I've seen, what you've done with the board, these folks may say absolutely not. But from the board side, and also as being captain of my department, I can't thank you enough. You did an outstanding job in both aspects of what you've done. You will be sorely missed from my department. There may be some that are glad you're gone, but I know from my standpoint, just speaking for myself, I truly will miss you. I don't want to get too deep into it, but thank you for everything you've done. I think you've been great to this county, this community as a board supervisor. We'll talk about that. And, your support for law enforcement, your support for first responders, and your support for just the county in general also. You've rode with us a time or two also. But, that's all I want to do is come here and, one, say thank you to everybody, but, to see both of y'all off in your new endeavors. I will say that as of the 15th, I will have all the employees for 15 days until Justin. So now, as my first 6 years as sheriff, I may be up to 3 or 4 months being fully staffed. Nice. So Justin's going to give me a whopping 15 days with that. But no, thank you all very much, and that's all I have.
I appreciate you, Sheriff. None of this would have been possible without your generosity and willingness to support me sitting here, and I appreciate every opportunity that you've given me and that you've given this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all have a wonderful day. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Just need to get public comment.
Yeah, we want to do public comment, I mean, if you want to. That shouldn't take it too long.
Let me read this statement here. It is the intent that all persons attending the meeting of the board, regardless of handicapping conditions, shall have an opportunity to participate. If any person present requires any special assistance, please let the board know in order that arrangements can be made. So with that, I'll open the public comment. When you came up, state the district you're from, your name, and limit your comments to 4 minutes.
Good morning, guys. Will Griffin Courthouse District. I am here today actually representing the town council. I serve as the mayor. And I really I first start off with condolences to Dr. Millsap on the loss of Vermont. But I wanted to come out today to acknowledge Justin and Lauren for the service they've done. And, words to describe you guys, community service comes right up top, which, as you all know, in today's political environment, if you can be called a community servant, that's really, really good. And you guys are always that first. The county's been blessed to have you in the role you've been in. Justin and I, you've always treated me with respect. We've always been able to talk. I'm glad that you're going to continue on the sheriff's department, that we won't lose you completely. hopefully. So, and Lauren, you know, you and I were friends before either one of us started doing what we're doing. And in this life, you know, I look at you as one of my very best friends. And I'm so excited for you and the job you're getting ready to take on being a parent. It's the most rewarding thing. It's the best job in the world. You and Chelsea are going to do great. But anyway, it's been really, really refreshing and heartwarming to know that if you need anything as the role that I'm in, I can call any one of the five of you guys. And I know you're going to answer my call. I know you're going to treat me with respect. I know we're going to try to work to a solution. It may not be out there, but I know you're going to give it your all. I'm going to give it my all. I got a couple gifts for you guys from the town. And once again, just want to say thank you for what you've done. And you're definitely going to be missed. And just good job. So, I'm going to bring something up. We had this picture commissioned a few years ago when Lance Turpin retired. It's a little black and white of a little downtown area. A little thank you note. Appreciate you, Justin.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Anything for you, brother? Yeah. Appreciate you, man. Yeah. Thank you guys for giving me a little bit of time. Y'all have a Merry Christmas.
Christmas, thank you.
Merry Christmas.
This mess is killing me this morning. Anyone else wish to speak? If not, I'll close public comment.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
Just in response to Will, I just really want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and all the town council. One of the first things that I did when I got elected was go to the town council meeting, introduce myself, and the town has always been so good to work with. I've never had anyone there that's really, as you said, wouldn't talk through an issue. And that's really the key to making all this work. And you can disagree, but if you can just work through the issue, 99% of the time you can find some type of solution. And it might not be exactly what we all wanted, but it's a solution rather than just fighting over it. So I really appreciate the way the town has worked with the county, and you in particular. There's been a lot of issues that I didn't know what to do, and you're one of the first people I called. And your experience and wisdom has helped me so much over the years, and I can't thank you enough.
I'd also like to say thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to the town council as well. Thank you for coming this morning. There's a select few people that, make a few different comments from time to time, but I'm reminded and just want to articulate just for a minute the first bridge that we were able to build. And that's in fact what it was with this board and the town council since I've been sitting here. I know there's been many previous, but the task that we dug into with the rec authority and meetings, a lot of people don't know what goes into that. And it's unfortunate that those uninformed comments are made periodically, and how well that we can come together and work together. And there's never been a doubt in my mind from this board to the town council under the various leaderships that there was one goal, and that was Floyd County. And I appreciate that with the town council, with your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I guess we could go on down to Mr. Wickham. I hope I said that right. I usually
You need to say what you need to say.
You're fine.
I'm speaking, you'll say what you're like.
Just passing out some presentations and then some draft reports for you. We want there one, and third, and for a big dog.
I wondered if you'd just given us one Christmas present. Yeah. Normally you can have a couple.
Yeah, that's right. Just a little bit light reading. All right, again, my name is Scott Wickham. I'm partner in charge of the county's audit. Thanks for letting me come today to discuss the audit results. First, I do want to mention, you probably noticed right off the bat that the sticker report says draft on it still. The numbers are final. The management session analysis is still being developed. So I expect in the next few days to have a final version. But as you'll see, the version in here is highlighted in yellow. That's last year's information as we're waiting on the current information. So that's the only item we're still waiting on to wrap up. But this is still a draft report until we have that.
If you're more comfortable without your mask, you can take it out.
Okay, I'll just so you can hear me a little better, I will. But yeah, so I'll go through that audit report, hit a few high points, and then move to the presentation. So I'll start with the thicker one. And on page 2, you have the independent auditor's report. And this is the opinion on the financial statements. Again, the county received an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion you can get. And that means the financial statements are materially accurate. They're presented here. There are a few additional paragraphs this year. The county implemented GASB 84 fiduciary activities. The larger impact of that was pulling the school activity funds into the school board financial statements. So each school has their own bank account that's monitored by the principal, and that's been audited previously on a cash basis in a separate report. New standards require that to be included in this one, so that audit report is referred to in this one and added in there. So now those numbers are now included in the school board financials, and they had not been previously. It also changed a little bit of verbiage, a little bit of other requirements, but that was the biggest part of that change. But again, this is a good, clean opinion. Just a few additional paragraphs to note there for you. And then the management discussion analysis is still a work in progress, as I mentioned, but the numbers are finalized. So on page 15, Exhibit 1, just kind of give you an idea of how these work a little bit. Exhibit 1 and 2 are the full accrual financial statements. So this includes everything, all of the county assets plus all the county debt for the net position. So the net position across the bottom is essentially the net worth of the county. As you can see, a sizable part of those amounts are tied up in capital assets, which are going to be the buildings you have less their related debt. And there towards the bottom, you have unrestricted. The county has about $6.3 million of unrestricted net assets, net position. The school board has negative $19 million, which might jump out at you, but the school board has allocated a part of the teacher retirement plan from BOS, which is more than that amount, and that's what causes that unrestricted amount. They also can't keep large cash balances at the school board, as anything they have reverts back to the county, so in the operating anyway. So there's not a lot to offset that sizable pension that they have, liability out there that they have allocated by the state, which again is nothing that they've done wrong. They paid what the state told them to pay. It's just an allocation of that liability. On page 17, Exhibit 3. This is a little bit more focused in on the county, and this is the modified accrual basis. So this Exhibit 3 on page 17 is the balance sheet on the shorter term. So this is going to be your cash plus your short-term receivables, less your short-term payables for fund balance. Fund balance gives you a little more detailed picture of what you all use the budget with, essentially. You all issued quite a bit of debt during 2021, and as you can see, you were still using it there. So kind of towards the bottom third, you'll see unspent bond proceeds about $20 million, which significantly increased your fund balance overall. But when you're looking at the measurement of how healthy the county is and what you have for reserves, you really want to look at the unassigned fund balance to see what you have to use there. The total government funds overall had about $5.7 million in unassigned fund balance. And in my other handout, you can kind of see what that means for the county. Exhibit 5 on page 19 This is the income statement on that same modified accrual basis of the county. So shorter term, again, cash activity plus short-term receivables less short-term payables. So you can see this significant increase in fund balance there, almost $8.9 million for the county, for the general fund. But almost all of that is related to the issuance of the debt, which goes into your fund balance, but it's not available for use. All right, and then with that, I'm going to jump all the way to the back of the report here. On page 139. This is the gas opinion, and this is the opinion on internal controls and compliance. We do quite a few tests as required by the APA, the Audit of Public Accounts, and with all of that, there is only one item noted, one finding. That was what reported last year as well, is that when we reviewed the financial statements, we were required to provide material entries to get the books accurate for mostly accruals entries. So we had the books. Cindy pulled them out of your cash basis system and then adjusted them quite a bit for accruals, but we found a few other items during our review. So that finding's still in there, similar to past years. These standards have gotten more and more complicated and more specialized. I had a meeting with Dr. Millsaps and we talked about maybe hiring a consultant. Some counties do hire a consultant for that service to do a pre-audit type activity. Something to consider to help get those books ready for us in that process. That's a pretty common thing. And you all have had a CPA in that role for quite a while, so that helped. But you still did have the finding for adjustment. So point that out to you. Nothing, it is a finding, but it's not particularly concerning. It's just that we're not allowed to be the one to catch everything. We're supposed to say everything's good to go. So we had a few adjustments to the accruals, but nothing I was concerned about. On the uniform guidance opinion on page 141, this is the opinion on the federal funds. Obviously, this year we did quite a bit of testing on the COVID funds. So we did a lot of the coronavirus money. They also had, as we refer to it, the ESSER money, which was a different pot of money that went to the schools. Both of those programs were reviewed. This is a clean opinion, so all that testing came back materially accurate. We had a few minor things in the recommendations that I'll show you, but overall, this is a good, clean opinion on that federal test. And on page 143 and 144, you can see which funds were included in that review. It's quite a lot there. Anything that designated with COVID-19 in front of it is related to COVID-19. I mentioned that finding for adjustments, and that is detailed on page 146 if you have it. But it's very similar to the prior year. Just we found a few accrual entries we needed to post. Overall, the audit went really well. The process is very challenging, trying to maintain the safety protocols, and I know we were here and staff here were having challenges, and we were having challenges, and we did implement some electronic Dropbox type items, and those helped. And I appreciate the staff helping a lot, uploading these files to us. That did help to get the audit done in an unusual environment. But, the staff was very helpful, so I appreciate that. And then I'll move to the presentation handout. It is thicker than normal. There's quite a few standards. Last year, because of COVID-19, they delayed a lot of the GASB implementations by a year. So we do have some of those building up, and there's some more detailed information in there. On page 2, we have a 5-year trend there for you. Kind of give you an idea of where things were, and as I mentioned right across the bottom, usually you want to see that fund balance increase, and it does quite a bit, but that's a lot of it influenced by the bond proceeds you had at the end of the year. A couple other items on note: you've got the meals tax increase there and other local taxes, so that's just about 8.3% per year, but that's very heavily recently on the meals tax. Your intergovernmental revenue is up 17.3%, but a lot of that is the coronavirus money you have received. General government includes a lot of your IT recovery. You'll invest quite a bit of money in IT as a result of those issues you had in the prior year. Public safety is up as well, related to different items purchased for COVID-19. relief. And then the community development is up because of business grants offered to small businesses as well as broadband improvements. Both those are grant funded. So a few items that you see an increase there, all very explainable. A lot of them related to COVID-19 results. On page 3, next page over, this kind of gives you an idea of what I was talking about, where you're standing. Across the bottom, you have unassigned fund balance. And that's really what you have available to use at the end of June. And you can see across the bottom in purple, the percent of operating expenditures, that is. GFOA recommends you have about 2 months or 16.667% of unassigned fund balance available. You're just below that now. You were just above that, now just a little below that. But you did have the tax increase, and that tax increase only went for half of a year in this. Right. So I think with a full year, it will help build that back up. But it's something to monitor as you watch through it. And again, that GFOA recommendation is a very, very generic. They don't know the details of Floyd County, and a lot of counties have a different kind of tax base and different unique set of circumstances. But it's something to monitor, just to keep as a baseline. And then on the next page, you can see you'll have a little bit of tax growth considering just on the assessments themselves. So looks pretty good considering. On page 5, summary of debt. First, I want to point out that this summary of debt includes all financial debt. So this is more than just your bonded debt. This is more than you're going to make payments for. This includes financial liabilities like that allocated net pension liability the VRS has given you. It also includes the accrued sick time and vacation time that the employees had at the end of the year, and other items like that, including your post-closure liability with the landfill and those items. So all of your financial debt. I do that because it's comparable to how the APA reports their amount, to give you apples to apples comparison. You're very similar to that per capita amount that they had. I do want to note that that number that they give us is based on the 2020 cost comparative report, so that APA number is a year behind. So we would likely be a little bit higher this year as well. A lot of places did issue debt for projects going on currently. So something to monitor there. You are right there at the state average. And usually that state average is a little bit higher because it is influenced by the Northern Virginia localities. But you all issued a whole bunch just recently, so that does impact it quite a bit. Page 6 is a visual of that same 5-year trend data. You can see the increases there, as discussed. Page 7 kind of gives you a pie chart of the current year revenues and expenditures, and kind of gives you an idea of the percentages of where that money comes from and where it goes. Then you can see on the next page the cash and investments increase and fund balance increasing as well. Page 9, the school fund summary. This number didn't have quite as much impact from COVID. The biggest impact to jump out is the increase in federal funds. They did have some CRF money. They did have some ESSER money, as I mentioned, from COVID-19. The charges for services decline there is not having the charges for school meals, since most of those were free based on state guidance. But a 2% increase per year in education costs is pretty fair. All right, on page 11, we kind of have a little bit of per capita data to kind of track per capita cost. Looking at per capita amounts in the 2020 cost comparative report, a lot of these are in line and you're below the state average on most of those, as you should be. I think I had $133 for general government in there, $81 for judicial administration, $467 for public safety. Public works was $139, so right out on that one. Health and welfare was $411, so you're well below most of these, right at public works, but looking pretty good on the average cost per capita there. Page 12, each year we give you this presentation to kind of show you how sensitive of an estimate that net pension liability is from BOS. It's very significant. The dollar amounts are significant they give you. As I mentioned, the $18 million there for the school board that they allocate to you all. But you can see how significant it is based on the investment rate. So during the 2020 measurement period, the earnings did not do as well as they hoped, so the number went up this year quite a bit. About $1 million for the county, and about $3 million for the school board, I think, increase there. Now, that said, during 2021, I was told they had a 30% return on investments. So the VRS did very well. And that will be impacted over the next couple of years, so it'll start coming back down a little bit. But so you can see how significant it is based on 1%. Well, they got 30%, which is quite a bit more. So it's hard to tell the impacts of all of that going forward. And I just want to point out it's a very significant estimate. We have in the past shown the amount for the OPEB, which is the group life and other items provided by VRS. As that amount was $375,000 for the county. It didn't show the whole schedule, but there is another similar schedule for that in the audit report. A little smaller amount. And then starting on page 13, some detailed information on the upcoming GASB implementations. During FY22 is the leases. So you want to make sure that any significant leases you all have, that the administration staff and the school board staff start compiling a list of those to evaluate for the next year audit, because you would need to include a right to use. If you were renting a building, you would have a right to use that building asset on your financial statements, offset by an operating lease liability. So new changes. FASB has put these into place several years ago, and now GASB is joining along as well. GASB 91 for conduit debt. That could impact some note disclosures for you all, but I don't think it will have too much of a financial impact. There's a few more coming down the line as well, and a lot more information there for you to read. Page 23 and 24. This is a report that we do for the APA. They require us to test certain things, test salaries and hire dates and birth dates, because they use that information that's in the VRS system to calculate those liabilities. They give that to the actuaries, and they do all their actuarials and come up with the liabilities, but they want to make sure that the data they're using is accurate. So they require us to do that testing. We've done the testing before as well, because we want to make sure people's retirement's right too. So, but this is a good, clean report. All of our testing for the county and school board was good. So,
on the right day.
Yeah. And then on page 25 and 26, we did have a few recommendations. These are items that are best practices or not material non-compliance kind of items. And this year, the management did write a response to those. So you'll see our recommendation, and then right below it, you'll see in italics the response and the corrective action plan that's been put in place. I'm not sure if you're all familiar or not, but part of the state's requirements with the COVID CRF funding was that quarterly you would submit a spreadsheet with your expenditures by category to the state, so they could take those, compile them, and send them to the federal government. We had a small variance, I think it was $36,000 on what you all had in total as reported versus what you all actually had case spends. So there was a variance there, and then there's a lot of ambiguity in the different buckets that you put it in, as far as was it for public health or was it for different items. You all had quite a bit in other, and I just think the state would want it to be in public health or a different category, but there wasn't really great guidance. So that's kind of where that comment is coming from, is that, as I kind of explained, if you put it in public health, it would have been harder for me to say it wasn't, but being in other, I felt like it could at least been in public health probably.
But we kept records of the other. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
All other has accountability and invoice team.
Yeah, there's a whole list. I have a whole list of exactly who the vendors were and everything. It's just a matter of the different categories of state reporting.
There were so many categories that it didn't fit in, it just fit under other, is what I'm gathering.
Kind of, yeah, and it's just,
And as we move forward, if we can move it into the other categories, we need to do so.
exactly.
I just want to make sure, I didn't mean to
Yep.
interrupt you.
No, that's a great question. That's exactly right. It's just, and it's not like this happened before. So there wasn't a, let's follow this because this worked last time. This was brand new. And then the state sent it out and they didn't allow you to make changes.
Right.
So if you made an error, they didn't let you fix it.
Yeah.
So it was a challenging process. You're not the only one that had a recommendation related to this. So. A few other items there. Make sure that we're doing those conflict of interest forms, that we're getting all those boxes checked. I know it's almost always, there's one page, at the top of the thing says, if you're completing this as a local government employee, don't answer question 1 and 2. Well, there's a third question on that page. Just make sure, and I don't remember who it was, but there is a third question on that page. So just make sure you do answer all the questions. And maybe just write NA on there if you want to make sure you're along.
Figures.
But a few other items there, a few things, social services. But again, a few things that it seems like management has taken the plan of action to get those fixed. So. The last few pages here, this is a lot of information. Kind of a summary of the audit process. As I mentioned, you all did implement GASB 84. The biggest change was including activity funds, which was on Exhibit 27. I didn't go there, but you can go look at that as well, see the impact. Those funds were audited previously as well. So that's not a change in them being audited now, but it's just a change in them being included in the financial statements. A few other items, the standard estimates that are included, all pretty standard. I did point out the net pension liability provided by the VRS and their actuarials, but those are some material to the audit. But overall, the audit process went really well. The county is still in pretty good financial shape. I mentioned the decline in available fund balance, but you all are watching that, and with the increase in taxes, they probably kind of expected that a little bit with all the projects you have going on. So. But I appreciate all the staff's help getting everything ready and through all the challenges. It's been a very challenging audit year with all the things, all the funding, but I appreciate that you all really helped me out. So. That was a lot of information. There's got to be some questions.
Yeah. My first one, on this draft, and you may have lost it with the other stuff, when do you anticipate having the final draft?
A couple of days, whenever you all have.
Yeah, that was part of the life challenges with Dr. Millsap. So either I will have them done hopefully by the beginning of next week, independently, or together we'll complete it by this week.
Okay. But you don't anticipate any numbers changes?
I do not.
Okay.
We will send an electronic copy without the draft and more copies that don't have that as well. But I wanted to bring these so you had something to go through today. Any other questions?
Yes.
I was just gonna say, and I know you've got the GASB stuff in here, and I haven't read it completely yet. Do you anticipate any problems meeting any of that?
I don't. Additional work.
I know sometimes it, all right, maybe I'm asking the wrong person. From what you've seen, do you anticipate any problems with these new
I don't believe
GASB?
so, not from what I've seen and what I've captured.
Because they've come up with some doozies in the past.
They do. GASB 68, well, GASB 34 was a huge change. GASB 68, putting the pension in the federal statements was a shock to the system for everybody. You open that Exhibit 1 and see negative $19 million for the school board, and that's scary. But it doesn't need to be, but that's what it is. And that's how that standard went into play then. And then 75, you added the OPEB portion, which for some places is very significant. You all are mostly just have the group life plans through VRS that are considered OPEB. So you have less of those plans than other entities. So it wasn't as significant for you all. And then GASB 84, the guidance was challenging for that. And some places that had jails were very complicated to implement that on. The activity funds did get merged in on the modified accrual basis. So those were cash basis financial statements in the past, and they were put in the modified accrual. So that was a change this year and just an amount of work. So you have all those standards. Gas 87 for leases could be a little bit challenging. So that's why I recommend trying to make sure you get a list of leases together. We kind of evaluate those in the spring and make sure we're all on the same page on how those are.
I want to thank, oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to expand on it. Any advantage you giving those leases or copies to them quicker than sooner?
Well, it's always, I would
I was
assume
just
it is,
saying,
yeah, an
yeah.
advantage to get any information to
That
them
way
as
you
soon
can
as
get a
possible.
head start on them if you needed to.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Because they do frown when you don't meet their requirements.
Yes, yes.
So, I want to just thank you for, I mean, I know this was challenging for your company too. And, I want to thank you for being as understanding with our challenges over the last 7 to 10 days. Overall, do you feel like our transition into a new, county, administrative staff has been relatively seamless from your perspective? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but.
The one hooks.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Well, to be honest, most of what we needed was wrapped up with Cindy.
Gotcha.
Most of what we needed.
Right.
Now, and, it's probably a little bit challenging for you all to review a lot of the information as being new,
Right.
coming from the information that Cindy had known a lot about.
Right.
So she was very, very involved and
Yes.
provided a lot of the information through, I think it was October, she was
Right.
here. And we had finished most of the work by that point. It was
Gotcha.
a lot of wrap up. So, but the new staff have been great work with so far. So.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted that on record.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important that, because it has been a challenge, and especially with all of the extra monies that have come in.
Yes.
I know we've really tried to work hard this year to document and make sure that we've got, that kind of accounting that is necessary for our audits for next year.
Yeah. And you all do have some reporting requirements for the ARPA money.
Right.
But I think a lot of places, and based on our discussions, are going to have improved processes now because you've done it once.
Right.
But with that one, you didn't. No one had
You didn't
done
have,
it.
nobody knew.
Yeah,
Right.
no one knew. So that was a challenge, and I think that most places will have a little bit better plan in place, and that was our discussion as well. So I think we're heading the right way, and we're wrapping up a lot of things to the end of this month, but then I'm available in the spring to meet, and if we have questions or anything on transition, I'd be happy to help with that.
Any other areas of concern that, technically fit the deal and was okay, or any areas of concern, or have you already relayed any of those to staff?
It really was pretty good. I was pretty happy with most of it. The amount of projects is a lot right now.
Right.
It was a lot, not COVID.
Right.
So you have a lot with all of the construction projects
Sure.
and all of that. That would be a focus, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe trying to get some grant reimbursements in timely. I know that the EDA has a lot of grants going on, and want to make sure that you're requesting those funds as soon as they're available to get them back in. That might be an area I would look at, but I didn't have an issue with it, so I think that just some.
And how do you mean?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's what I meant, and no dispersion on anybody, just areas like you were just talking about, you need to watch that.
Yeah.
And how do you mean? You mean just hound people for the money?
Well, when you incur expenditures,
Right.
normally you would request them the next month or at least in the next couple month or two.
Right.
And I know that you all do have some expenditures that had not quite been requested. And some of them may not be eligible because you've had some projects that are kind of in flux.
Correct.
So that's all, just making sure when you have that many projects going on, and I know Leanne's working on trying to monitor what is an eligible cost under
Right.
this program, which is not, it can be challenging. So that's just an area I focus on.
You're just saying as soon as it becomes eligible, ask for it
Yeah.
then, not later.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
all your hard work.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us. I know that was a lot of information, and I
Yeah.
skipped probably 100 pages. So when you all read every one of those pages, if you have questions, my contact's on the front of this.
We'll have you come back.
Absolutely.
You can bring lunch.
Here we go. All right, well, if you need anything, just let me know.
All right.
Okay, thank you all.
Scott.
You have a Merry Christmas.
Merry
Good night.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Just do it on with that 5 minute break.